Okay, I'm going to put this another way. Last year, I was driving an asphalt distributor, and someone from another crew had borrowed it and brought it back to the yard half full of trackless tack, and it got below freezing and it separated. That black goo, we loaded the truck with kerosene to get rid of the goo, and we had to do that to the screen. On that day, my boss had a fire extinguisher out there, and when I put everything up for the day, I put the fire extinguisher in my truck. This next day was the only day that I ever operated that truck where it had more than one fire extinguisher in it. So I took the truck out the next day to this piece of land across the highway that we have where we dump things. That gun was on the bumper when I was taking that torch to the back of the truck. Those bars down at the bottom, to try to get them to where they would spray again and they weren't clogged up. And as I was doing this, my clothes became splattered with the oil that was coming out. And down there at the bottom, there was a huge pool of this black goo and this kerosene. So effectively, I had made napalm. And a fire caught out. That truck is probably 10 feet tall, and the fire was up above the top of the truck. This got scorched. I threw it out of the fire, and I threw it somewhere where there wasn't any fire. And this got torched. That was covered in the oil, and I threw it away from the fire, and I drove the truck out of the fires, and I had just enough fire extinguisher to get the flames down to where you could stomp them out. This all happened within 60 seconds or less. I felt the heat of this fire. I did not burn. I did not get a single burn on me. My clothes did not catch fire, and the explosives did not catch fire. Everything else burned. A guy that I work with pulled up in his truck. They were at the shop across the highway, and they saw the flames and the smoke, and they thought there had been a bad wreck. And a lot of these guys are paramedics and volunteer firefighters outside of work, and so they drove over to render aid. And by the time they got there, I had the fires down to 2 campfires. I'd had just enough fire extinguisher to get them down to 2 campfire-sized things you could stomp out. And I wasn't burned. I'm not a trained firefighter. And it took me a while to understand what had happened. What had happened was that the Spirit of God came upon me. And I moved through that fire and grabbed explosives and threw them without any thought. I'm not a trained firefighter. I don't know how else to explain this, but God was with me that day. I have been running from a snowstorm. I have seen a lot of this in this type of weather. Those of you who grew up with me and saw me drive as a teenager, the idea of me driving a semi-truck horrifies you. I'm the most no-driving person you've ever met. I've had to jump out of this truck and beat the brakes with a hammer in -2 degree temperatures to get the brakes to unfreeze, and I've been running from this. I've stared this stuff down. I grew up in Texas. I'm up here staring this down, and I'm not falling off the side of the highway. Me, my no driving self. This is because I have had a hedge of protection. This is because God was with me. I've seen signs like this over the last year. And I'm not on drugs. I was pulled off my testosterone shots in August of this year. I took my last one in September. I was on that stuff for 8 years. I was not going to give up the mad, passionate sex my wife and I were having. I just wasn't going to do it. I knew that these hormone shots could end my life early. And when my heart stopped in August, I'm lucky that that's not what happened. I've been allowed to live. I'm being called to do something. I've told a few of you what that is, but I will give more details when someone helps me. I'm taking the money that I have to pay down my wife's bills. And I'm taking the money that I have to take care of my wife. I could afford to do what I'm being called to do. But I'm asking for help. I will offer the most transparency. Anyone who seriously pledges to help. You will not see me be like these well-dressed preachers like Kenneth Copeland on TV, where you give me money and I will go buy a new private jet. That's not what's going on here. But anyone who seriously wants to help me do the work of God, I will tell you exactly where that is, exactly how that is, exactly what that is. But I'm being called. And I need your help.